Okay, guys. So we got here like the patch data mining from King. It's a guy that is actually pretty good at gathering the information from the files of the game. So first thing, Rivers of Blood has been nerfed. Man, like
It needed it, to be fair.
like this.
Now, the biggest thing, like, I think I would have been fine with the damage and the bleed nerf, but the hitbox nerf was ridiculous in my opinion. I don't think it needed it at all.
So
Here I can show you the. Let me find the image.
the guy like wrote down here like the Rivers of Blood changes. So Blade moved hitbox positions.
Yeah, so that's
Okay.
the new hitbox position that I just sent to you.
Okay, let me actually see that. And previous one, okay, was the previous one was wider, yeah? Or
Yeah. Kaj didn't send me the original one, but I believe the original one like went to the left as well. It wasn't just directly in front of it. So like I was doing testing, so we had pretty low lat, so like phantom hits weren't as noticeable, but they were basically just like rolling. Like every time I pressed it, they would just like roll into me and they wouldn't get hit.
Okay. Summary of it is like it is just easier to avoid the phantom hits now.
Yeah, it was just easier to avoid in general.
They nerfed like damage by like 10%, bleed build up by 15% on the base, the blade itself, and not the extension. Let's call it that way. Poise damage multiplier is actually higher, but only on the blade itself. Ranged attacks, but like to be honest, like damage nerf is uncalled for Rivers of Blood, because like
No, I agree.
this weapon is really like only about it's gimmick weapon. It's only about its Ash of War. It's really not that good when you remove the Ash of War. Range attack like damage also nerfed. The bleed build up is decreased by 30%. That's what we have actually seen, like, because I was testing it with Havoc before, and yeah, it seems like the build up is just less on the range. I don't know, like I have been like I kind of like it that there is less of the build up, and they apparently also changed the hitbox, which is cool and stuff. But I think like the damage nerf is uncalled for. It's a noob stomper weapon. Like it's like,
I also think the hitbox change was a bit over the top. Like, I think all those things together is just too much. Like, I honestly don't like. So I was messing around a little bit, and like, if I'm using like blood straight swords and like building up bleed, then like it is somewhat useful as a swap, because I still am going to get that proc fast. Like in the proc, people still die. Like you can still very close to one shot somebody if you proc them. So like, yeah, I wouldn't say like it's useless. Like it still has a use, but it's not nearly as like it is a very heavy nerf. Like I do feel like this was a Reddit change, to be honest.
yeah, this is kind of a Reddit change. It's like
Like I do agree that Rivers of Blood probably needed to be looked at. Like assuming that everything else in the game would be balanced, and Rivers of Blood would need to be on that list. But like Power Stance Spears still exists, so.
yeah. On top of that, on top of that, like you know,
Like,
it's
fingerprint still exists.
it's like lack of understanding of, I guess, of devs when Rivers of Blood is overpowered and when it is actually underpowered. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense for the damage nerf especially. But okay, what we have here, Stars of Ruin.
Stars of Ruin is completely strafable now.
Okay, so you can legitimately strafe it.
You can just run around it, yeah.
Okay, this is fucked.
I mean, I'm kind of okay with it not being guaranteed damage.
Yeah, I guess.
But I don't know if I liked like the way that they went around it. I don't know. Like I think it's probably fine, because like something being guaranteed damage is definitely a problem, because if someone's low enough, like you can just kind of kill them with it. But it's kind of like, I guess if I was worried about like finishing people, like things that would kill people if they're low, like being guaranteed and very hard to get away from, I'd be way more worried about the what's it called, Flat Axe's Ruin or whatever it's called, the one that explodes. Like,
I don't remember too, but like,
yeah, it's no longer a turbo. Yeah, I do think in like open world it was probably more of a problem than a duel, because in a duel it was never really that hard to get away from. But like in the open world, I could see it being a problem, like from in like co-ops, PvP, like invasion standpoint.
So Stars of Ruin essentially was in duels. It always seemed like the other option was always stronger anyway. How that was called?
Correct. Yeah. I can't the name of it, but you're right. The I can't remember what it was.
The
called,
one that deals poise damage, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, and also like it was just like I'm pretty sure it's a shorter cast time too, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the same cast time.
It's like was taking less mana and so on. So
yeah, Star Shower. Yeah, that's the
something
one.
like
That's
that.
what it's called.
Yeah. So like that one, it's essentially, I don't know, like it's kind of like Stars of Ruin becomes the PvE spell, I guess,
Yeah.
and that's it.
I think
And
that's kind of like was
I
a
think
big point of it too. Like,
yeah, it might be.
I
big
guess like the
change.
biggest thing is like most of the changes are mostly fine, like that I've went over and like I've talked to Amir about and stuff. Like all the cool little buffs they did were like cool and probably and like definitely needed. But I kind of feel the same way I did after the last patch, where it's like there's still things that are just utterly broken in the game that they haven't addressed. Like they tried to address Bloodhound stuff, so I'm not gonna like go into that because they did give like an attempt at balancing it, right? Like they did things, they're showing that they know it's a problem and they're willing to work on it. But like a lot of other stuff, like we just spent how long with fingerprint? Like there's no actual viable way to break fingerprint.
Just subscribed.
There's no like there's not very many answers against like even RKR Gugs. Like fingerprints your answer, right? Like like there's just so many things that need addressing. That like seeing them change something like Rivers of Blood, for example, like yeah, it's a fine change, and like yeah, they may have went over the top, but like all in all, it's probably a fine change. But then like the other more broken stuff just exists, and you're like, oh okay.
Essentially, balance changes are solely focused on being kind of Reddit pleasers. Let's call it that way. I have feeling like it's there is no really like a significant changes that would affect the gameplay from the balance perspective for people that play this game on like a meta level or around meta level and just participate in all the fucking gangspank fests and so on. Yeah, the changes to the systems are great, but yeah, these changes are fucking kind of. Shadow saying that these changes were listed on Elden Ring PvP. Like, I mean, we are aware of stuff on Elden Ring PvP .net. And well, that's what we are saying. Like a lot of things that are actually listed here are not touched. I mean, like some were touched, like but other weren't. Like the balance changes, the balance suggestions that you have here, it's still like, you know, the most important things, it's called that way, that are really overpowered at the given moment are untouched. Besides like Bloodhound stuff. But now we have fucking light rolls. That's basically
yeah. It's like, like I said, like I don't want like I hate like because I kind of had a pretty similar thought about the last patch where it's like yeah they did a lot of really good stuff, they did a lot of really cool stuff, and they're making good steps, but they're just like it took them how long to fix the helmet swap, and it's still like the other helmet swap glitch for FP still works. They didn't even fully fix it, right? It's the stuff like that that's like. I guess that's bothersome to me. The one below that, the Opaline hard tier change is super cool though. Again, it's not necessarily like I would have rather seen other things being taken care of than this, but it's still a really good change that they made.
Yeah. Like they're like a good changes. It's just that like you know, like for an example, I guess like maybe they just don't know yet what to do. For an example, with shields, because the problem is that they had like a very good solution to the shield poking in Dark Souls 3. You know. It's like Dark Souls 3 shield poking, according to many people, was okay. And
yeah, no, it was like really well balanced because shield poke was useful, but you couldn't just like only shield poke. For one, it was like strafing in general in like Dark Souls 3 was a lot better. But like when you shield poked, you were like locked in that animation. Like you couldn't move, you couldn't aim, you couldn't do anything. So like if somebody knew you were going to do it, like if you were very like readable with it, you could just walk behind it and backstab it pretty easily.